Welcome and good evening to this regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Kettering Planning Commission for Monday, December 4th, 2023. This meeting will be televised as usual on Miami Valley Cable Council channel number 6 and streamed live over the internet at mvcc.net. It will also be recorded and available for later viewing on mvcc.net. I would like to thank the Miami Valley Cable Council for televising and taping tonight's meeting. Since this meeting is both audio and videotaped to form a complete record for possible appeal to City Council and/or the courts, it is important that anyone who wishes to address the Commission to please come forward to the lectern, speak into the microphone, and give their name and address for the record. The Planning Commission is a volunteer, independent body appointed by the Council whose mission is to hear all bodies involved and subsequently make a motion to approve, deny, continue, or recommend the application. All action by the Commission can be appealed to the City Council. I'd like to begin by introducing members of the Planning Commission. To your extreme right and my extreme left is Ken Leckie. Ken is the Assistant Secretary. Next is Carol Fisher, our Secretary. She's followed normally by Connie Gaw, our recording secretary. Connie has an excused absence tonight. I'm Ray Waskey, the chairman. Following me is Don Rethman, our vice chairman, and then Troy Urbis, our planning commissioner. Tonight, members of our city staff are Ryan Holmesy, city planner and zoning administrator, who will also be acting as our recording secretary for this evening. Under old business, the first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the Commission's meeting of October 16th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of October 16th, 2023. Mr. Holmesy, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Rethman?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Urbis?
Yes.
Mr. Lackey?
Yes.
And Mr. Waskey?
Yes, the minutes have been approved. Turning now to new business, the second item on the agenda is a request for a lot consolidation of the property at 2250 East Stroop Road, planning case 23-020. And we'll begin with staff's presentation. Mr. Holmesy.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a fairly straightforward request. It's the property at 2250 East Stroop Road. It contains the Kettering Assembly of God Church, as well as a couple of houses. All the properties are owned by the church, and that red outline there kind of depicts the outline of the area being consolidated this evening. Right now, there's currently 5 lots there, and they would like to consolidate those 5 lots into one lot that would contain approximately 17.3 acres. And there's also, and here's the actual record plan, and then the existing lot lines are in red there. One thing I wanted to call to your attention is there's a small section of right-of-way being dedicated along East Stroop Road. When I get to the actual recommendation, one of the conditions deals with ensuring that that's kosher per our Kettering's engineering department, and it should be, but we just put that condition in there to be safe. And here's the proposed lot lines. They want to take those 5 lots and consolidate it into one. And the reason for this, what triggered this request was, if you'll recall, several months ago there was a meeting for a conditional use to construct that garage on the neighboring property to the west. They were running into some challenges with having a house next door as a principal use, where they have to meet the 35-foot setback if the house is a principal use. By consolidating the lots this evening, the house becomes accessory to the place of worship, and thus that garage can shift further to the east per the zoning code. In terms of reviewing the record plan, staff reviewed it under just the general zoning standards. The property, all the parcels are zoned R1 residential. The proposed lot will far and above exceed both the minimum lot size and the minimum lot frontage. And then also the subdivision standards of section 1117.03 of Kettering's codified ordinances. The record plan meets all of those conditions, and that was included as a part of attachment C in your packet. The only one that it didn't meet yet, which is common, is they need to officially certify the record plan when they bring it in for signatures. So again, there's the record plan there. There are a few people here this evening who might want to speak. I don't know for sure, but that's the staff presentation, and we do have a recommendation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Holmesy. Does the commission have any questions for Mr. Holmesy?
I have none.
Nope.
None? Okay. Is the applicant present? Would you care to have anything to say?
I've had it, we should have done this 25 years ago. Should have been done 25 years ago. That's
Okay. I see Mr. Routsong out there. Do you have anything to say?
Thank you. I have no comment. I'll yield.
Okay, thank you. Okay. While this is not a public hearing, the commission is always interested to hear from anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on the matter. If there is anyone out there, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll move on to staff recommendations. Mr. Holmesy.
Thank you, Chairman. The staff recommendation is that the Planning Commission motion to approve the record plan, and that's case number PC-23-020, with the following conditions which must be met prior to the provision of Planning Commission signatures. Number one, the plat drawing be sealed by the surveyor. Number two, a signature line for the Planning Commission secretary be added to the final record plan. And finally, number three, and again, this deals with the right-of-way dedication. The applicant agrees to coordinate with and adhere to any changes recommended by the Kettering Engineering Department.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holmesy. Okay, before we move on to the motion, any questions for Mr. Holmesy at this point?
None?
None? Okay. Mrs. Fisher, I believe you have a motion.
I do have the motion. Whereas an application has been received from Josh Pleasance, agent for the owner of the property at 2250 East Stroop Road, Kettering, Ohio, 45440, requesting approval of a replat of 2250 East Stroop Road. This replat would take 5 existing lots and consolidate them into one lot containing 17.2897 acres. And whereas this request constitutes approval of a final record plan for the newly described lot, and whereas the Planning Commission has reviewed the facts surrounding this request, including an oral and written report by city staff, which is incorporated herein, I move that the applicant's request for approval of a final record plan for the Kettering Assembly of God Church Plat 2 be approved with the following condition, which must be met prior to the provision of the Planning Commission signatures. 1, the plat drawing will be sealed by the surveyor, and 2, a signature line for the Planning Commission secretary be added to the final record plan. 3, the applicant agrees to coordinate and adhere to any changes recommended by the Kettering Engineering Department. End of motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Could I request, what were the three, the copy I have doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to,
I'll second.
oh, I'm sorry, it has not been seconded. Thank you, Mr. Lackey. Okay, now it has been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments, discussion on the motion? Okay, Mr. Holmesy, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Lackey,
Yes.
Mr. Urbis,
Yes.
Mr. Rethman,
Yes.
and Mr. Woski.
Yes. The motion to approve the lot consolidation has been passed.
So I'll get the signed motion out.
Just a point of clarification. May I ask why we needed to add a signature line for the secretary? Planning Commission secretary.
All plats are signed by both the commission, the chair and the secretary.
Well, it's just a condition because it's not on the latest plat drawing we got. The final one comes in, they'll just have to correct that, and then we'll get the signature.
Yep, that's standard. Moving on to the third item on our agenda, it's a request for a lot split at 3404 North Marshall Road, planning case 23-021. And again, we'll begin with the staff's presentation. Mr. Holmesy.
Thanks again, Chairman. This is a very, very straightforward request. This is an area of, these two parcels have never been platted. I don't know why it shows the actual line on the GIS map as if these two lots already exist, because if you look at all the records, it's just one parcel measuring about 0.9 acres. And what they want to do is split it into two and plat it. They'll, of course, keep the house to the north, and then to the south, they'll have another buildable lot for another residential unit in the future. One thing I wanted to call to your attention before I get any further, we did talk to the engineering department about potentially getting some right-of-way dedicated as a part of this plat, and they determined that as long as they need to dedicate enough to have the front property line be at the back edge of the sidewalk, and that's where it is today. Anything above that would be additional right-of-way that we wouldn't have a need to have. So that's why there's no right-of-way being dedicated as a part of this plat. And to the north, there's kind of a little section of houses there where there's a parking lane. The road kind of widens a little bit and then it narrows again. So that's why the right-of-way to the north is a little bit deeper, or a little bit wider, I'm sorry, than what's shown here. So here's the record plan that they submitted. The existing lot line, again, it's just the one parcel. They want to split it into two lots. Each lot contains about would contain about 0.43 acres, and they meet the minimum size requirements of the R3 zoning district. And also, staff did review it under the subdivision standards, and we included that review as attachment C in the packet that went out. And just like the last plat, most of those requirements are met, except they need to certify. They need to certify the plat drawing that comes in, and also one other comment that we added, and we've been doing this for a couple years now. We want them to remove the setback lines from the plat drawing because that just generates confusion. Plats don't regulate setbacks; those are regulated by the pattern district, and we see constantly where people think their setbacks are based on some plat that was recorded in like the 1950s, and they're usually a lot bigger than what our actual requirements are. So to prevent that confusion in the future, we want them to remove the setback lines from the plat drawing. Oh, I'm sorry. And that concludes my presentation. We do have a recommendation, but before I get to that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Does anyone have a question for Mr. Holmesy? Nope. Nope. All right. And once again, the applicant's not here, so no comments from the applicant. Since this is not a public hearing, once again, we are interested in hearing from anyone in the audience who wishes to address this matter. Seeing none, we'll move on to staff recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. The staff recommendation is that the Planning Commission motion to approve the record plan, case number PC-23-021, with the following conditions which must be met prior to the provision of Planning Commission signatures. Number one, the plat drawing be sealed by the surveyor. Number two, the setback lines be removed from the final Mylar.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Holmesy. Mr. Urbis, you have a motion.
Yes, I do. I'll make a motion whereas an applicant has been received from Joseph Soder, owner of the property at 3404 North Marshall Road, Dayton, Ohio, 45429, requesting approval of a plat of 3404 North Marshall Road. This plat would create two lots, one containing 0.4343 acres and the other containing 0.4349 acres. And whereas this request constitute approval of a final record plan for the newly described lots, and whereas the Planning Commission has reviewed the facts surrounding this request, including an oral and written report by city staff, which is incorporated herein. I move that the applicant's request for approval of a final record plan for the Soder subdivision be approved with the following conditions, which must be met prior to the provision of a Planning Commission signatures. 1, the plat drawing be sealed by the surveyor, and 2, the setback lines be removed from the final Mylar. End of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Urbis. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this motion. Mr. Holmesy, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Urbis,
Yes.
Mr. Rethman,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Lackey,
Yes.
and Mr. Woski.
Yes, the motion to approve the lot split has now been passed. The last item on the agenda is audience participation. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the commission on items not on tonight's agenda is asked to come forward tonight. Seeing none, there's your chance. Okay, seeing none, moving on to other business. Mr. Holmesy, signing of plats.
We have none this evening.
Thank you. Communications and reports.
The only thing I wanted to mention is now that it's getting into the winter and it's a little bit slower in the office, we're getting caught up with some of the stuff, day-to-day stuff, but we probably will start bringing some zoning code amendments forward for work sessions. Probably, I don't know if we'll have a meeting on December 18th. Does anyone plan on being out of town then? We do have two like right-of-way dedication plats that we've gotten applications for. So we,
I'll be here, I know that.
okay. Okay. So we'll probably will have a meeting that evening, but that's really all I have.
Is there anything, any progress or any report on the long-range strategic plan with the city? Any updates?
I'm not on really the steering committee for that, but I know that they've made a lot of progress. I think that there was one other public meeting to discuss that last week or the week before. 30th? Okay. It was last week. But I would have to ask someone in the office who's actually more heavily involved. But I know progress has been made. It's moving along. I just don't know when it'll be adopted.
Okay. All right. And finally, planning commission comments. None? Okay. Okay, we have a quiet commission tonight. So, our next regularly scheduled meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 18th at 7 p.m., and the time is 7:17 p.m. Eastern Time. The meeting is adjourned.